Hi teacher, this is Asanecho Bravo and this is my final oral presentation about the training I received as a student of the English language major during the last 5 years. Well, in general, my experience as a student of this major and as teacher in training all these years has been quite enriching and satisfying. I have to say that I feel particularly lucky to be part of the last generation with the 1995 study program because I believe it has brought so many benefits to my formation as English teacher. On one hand, I have had the chance to learn about different cognitive processes behind the language learning and the language acquisition at different ages, as well as the social and psychological factors that somehow affect this learning or this acquisition. Also, I have had the opportunity to delve in certain aspects of English as foreign language, such as grammar, phonetics, phonology, just to mention some of them. All this at the same time has allowed me to achieve two goals. The first one is to master some skills and sub-skills in English and to have more integral and complete understanding and comprehension about how language works. On the other hand, I have learned what teaching involves, from teaching itself to what it implies and all the aspects that revolve around it. Not only teaching techniques, methods, and approaches, but also motivation strategies, classroom management, lesson planning, creation of materials, which at the same time have to be always focused on students to make them have a significant learning. Therefore, I have to say it's difficult for me to say which subject or course helped me the most, since I believe that each of them, either the ones focused on language or the ones focused on teaching, has played a very important role in my formation and training as English teacher. However, I would dare to say that the courses of English teaching, as well as the course of design and creation of didactic material, were the most determining and the ones that impact me the most when starting my immersions or practicum. And these courses or programs, I was able to familiarize with the format of the lesson plan and I could understand the real purpose of the creation of materials. From my perspective, last year was the most determining of my training and formation, specifically the two last semesters when I started the immersions or practicum. Honestly, this first contact with teaching was quite shocking and overwhelming at the beginning. However, my experience in general was pretty good, but overall enriching. I had the opportunity to work with a clever group of students. The most part of the time, classes worked very well, and the response of the students to the activities me and my partner planned was positive. Also, at the end of a practicum, the teacher in charge told us that we did a very good job with the students, and the materials and the activities that we created and adapted for them were very accurate for the purposes of each of the classes. Of course, there were moments in which I felt frustrated because I discovered that applying the theory and the practice is harder than I thought. When you work in an educational institution, there are some rules that limit the teacher in terms of trying different materials out of the book. Of course, there were moments in which I felt frustrated because I discovered that applying the theory and the practice is harder than I thought. When you work in an educational institution, there are some rules that limit the teacher in terms of trying different materials out of the book. That is the biggest challenge I faced during this period. My partner and I were asked to follow the organization, structure, and content of the book. We had to create and adapt our planning to the course book, and we had to decide which activities include and which activities avoid. However, since I was well prepared in terms of planning and material adaptation and creation, which I think are other two strengths I have been developing during the two last semesters, I could face this challenge successfully. And for me, that's exactly what being a teacher is about. You have to use what you know about teaching and the tools that you acquire as a student, and then change and adapt it according to your students' needs, their context, their ages, and the objectives you have to achieve. At the end, my partner and I could meet the objectives of each of the classes without leaving the book out of our planning. Another challenge that I faced frequently was the lack of participation of students in sub-sessions. Since they are youngsters, their behavior is in constant change. One day they can be energetic and excited about the class, and the other they can remain in silence the whole class. These changes in behavior and attitudes towards learning English were really difficult to deal with. However, this is something that I knew in advance and that we actually studied during our teaching practice course. Therefore, my partner and I were prepared enough to look for solutions, applying different strategies of motivation, using different resources to create materials and activities that attract the students' attention. From this practicum, I also got lots of learnings. I learned a lot not only about the students and the experience itself, but also about me, about my weaknesses, such as the way in which I provide instructions or the way in which I explain certain terms and topics, which are two aspects I need to improve in my practice. Also, I discovered some positive qualities and strengths I didn't know I possessed. For example, I didn't know I was capable enough to guide a class and to manage a group of students with difficult ages. Moreover, I discovered that I am good at working under pressure or in stressful situations, and that I can establish a good rapport with my learners and build a relationship strong enough to make them feel comfortable to share their ideas and opinions. In general, I think all this learning is a result or the consequence of one thing: the constant reflection about my practice. Through reflection, I became more aware of everything that I do during my practice. I find this situation kind of funny but also quite interesting because honestly, at the beginning, I used to suffer every time a teacher asked me to reflect about my practice. I found it very exhausting and difficult to go back and think what I did wrong, what I did right, or what I could have done better. However, now I strongly believe that being constantly encouraged by my teachers to rethink and reflect about everything I do inside the classroom has helped me to improve a lot my performance as teacher. And actually, I think this is one of the habits I've been developing the most during recent semesters. I have to say that I feel so thankful for being taught that because I feel like every class is a chance to do it better and to try new strategies, activities, dynamics, and materials, which is something that I really enjoy. I have heard some of my classmates saying they are disappointed because we weren't able to give classes inside a classroom with the students in front of us. Which was one of the consequences of the health emergency we have been facing since last year. And I have to say that at the beginning I felt exactly the same. However, I believe that teaching online is even more enriching than teaching face to face for many reasons. Firstly, it made us develop our abilities at using technology, right? We had to learn how to use different platforms such as Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, or Zoom, and different technological resources to make our materials and activities and classes in general more attractive and less exhausting for the students. Also, we had to deal with other problems quite different to the ones we could face in face to face classes. For example, problems with internet connection, not being able to know what happened with the students on the other side of the computer, if they are truly paying attention, or if they feel tired or sleepy, or if they aren't just in the mood for the class, etc. So I think giving classes online gave us a great opportunity to develop skills and learn things that we probably wouldn't have learned or developed in face-to-face classes. Finally, to conclude this reflection, if I had to make a recommendation to improve the ELT program for future students, I would give only two suggestions. The first one is that it could be a good idea to lengthen the time devoted to immersions and practicum. Maybe starting in an earlier stage could help students to start familiarizing with the real practice. My second recommendation is to include in the study program some topics about how to adapt material and activities of a course book, which is the main material used by most institutions nowadays. It could be a good idea to change the format of the ideal and elaborated lesson plan introduced by the teacher and show the students or the teachers in training the different lessons they will face to in the future when working in any educational institution.